Today I'll be presenting the case of novel collagen 1 alpha 2 chain mutation causing the osteogenesis imperfecta type 4. So we had a 6-year-old child born of second degree consanguinity, came to us with a complaint of recurrent fractures. He had 3 long bone fragility fractures in 1 year and bilateral bowing of the legs. Otherwise, he had normal developmental milestones. All 3 were minimal trauma fracture. The first fracture happened at the lower one-third of the left femur in January 19 while he was playing in the school. The second fracture happened at the left upper one-third of the tibia in March 19 while he got slipped on the wet floor. And third fracture happened at the lower one-third of the right femur in May 19 while he fell down again due to cast from the previous fracture. So all 3 were treated conservatively and he came to us in January 20, that is after 6 months. He was put on calcium and vitamin D syrup by the orthopedic surgeon. Otherwise, there was no history of neonatal seizure or carpopedal spasm or slowing of the linear growth or bony pain or back pain. There was also no history of proximal muscle weakness, poor or excessive weight gain, or any recurrent chest infection. There was no history indicating any systemic illness or RTA. There were no dental issues. There was no history of any significant drug intake, and there was no such similar history in the family. So, on examination, the child was found to be well nourished. He had no any dysmorphic features. The only positive findings were blue sclera and genu varum with the intercondylar distance of 7.4 centimeter that we can see here. Here the blue sclera was very subtle. Otherwise, there was no dental abnormalities. There were no hearing difficulties. There was no hearing difficulty. There was no vision issue, and there was no hyperextensibility of the joint, and no any other apparent signs of rickets also. Regarding anthropometry, the child was 105 centimeter tall, that is falling between 3rd and 10th centile, and his MPH was the 10th centile, so he was well within normal limit, and his weight was also 16 kg, that is also was at 10th centile during the first visit. So we ordered routine investigations including calcium profile, VBG and electrolytes, and everything was within normal limit and normal range except alkaline phosphatase, which was 120 international unit per liter, and our lab normal range for that age and sex, it was the lower limit was 145, so it was marginally low. We also ordered his skeletal survey to find out the hidden feature and any other signs. Here we can see bilateral bowing of the femur, and here are the old healed 3 fractures. There were no any apparent signs of rickets in the bilateral wrist joint. Surprisingly, we found on the lateral skull X-ray that he had copper-bitten appearance, but there was no sign or symptoms or past history of intracranial tension or hydrocephalus. So we also got his fundus done, and it was negative for papilloedema. So we reviewed the literature and we could find that this can be normal variant also, and probably same in this child. His epi and lateral spine radiograph were apparently normal. So in nutshell, this child had blue sclera, genu varum, history of minimal trauma fractures of long bones, and marginally low ALP. So at this juncture, we considered this differential diagnosis. Because of the low ALP.
Do you see any vermian bones in the skull, which is one of the findings seen in the osteogenesis imperfecta?
Yes, sir, but no, sir, we couldn't find any vermian bones in the sutures.
Okay. And you said the teeth are normal, though there is no dentinogenesis imperfecta?
No, sir, there was no dentinogenesis imperfecta, sir. The teeth were quite normal and well developed.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So because of the blue sclera, recurrent fracture and marginally low ALP, first we put the differential of the hyperphosphatemia of the childhood variant. Second, we put the DD of osteogenesis imperfecta because again the blue sclera and recurrent fracture, this would be the common differential. And we also kept the remote possibility of the other primary osteoporotic syndrome, although the specific clinical feature indicating them was not there in our patient. At this juncture, we also wanted the patient to further evaluate, but the parents could not stay. They were coming from the far place, and they told that they will be coming back. So they came to us.
Yes, Dr. Set, any other differential diagnosis you think here? Or audience will put any other differential diagnosis?
मैं करूं?
वो दूसरा कनेक्ट हो गया
Yes, sir. We can consider partially treated rickets also, but patient had a blue sclera, and there were no other signs of rickets on the X-ray or clinically. Or this can
Yes, yes. Yes.
and this can be the idiopathic juvenile osteoporosis, but then patient had a blue sclera, so we want to consider these two before considering that.
Mhm. Because there is some other causes are also there for the blue sclera.
Yes, sir.
Any other cause of blue sclera with fracture?
Yes, sir. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome will have blue sclera. Marfan syndrome will also sometimes have blue sclera.
So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome can be another differential diagnosis, but hyperextensivity is much more common in the Ehlers-Danlos. That is very classical of that. You said it
Yes,
is
sir.
not there in this particular patient.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that will be lower on the list. Fine.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So then again, child came to us after 2 months, and we repeated his calcium profile. So again, everything was in normal range, except ALP, which again came marginally low, that is 121. So this time, to confirm or rule out hyperphosphatasia, we advised vitamin B6 level, and it came out to be 32.5 nanogram per ml. So again, it was borderline high. Now with such a severe phenotype with history of recurrent fracture, this was not completely explainable, as we would expect vitamin B6 to be 2 or 3 times higher than the normal range. So to confirm the diagnosis, we advised the clinical exam sequencing and BMD by DEXA scan, but somehow parents couldn't get it done at that time, and the child was lost to follow up from March 20 because of the COVID lockdown onwards. And just before 2 months, we contacted the patient from our side, and during that time we came to know that patient got another fracture also in April 2020 due to falling down while playing. So again, it was minimal trauma fracture, which was of the left shaft of the femur, and it was treated with the elastic nail. So this time again we advised them strongly for the clinical exam sequencing because we wanted to confirm diagnosis, and we arranged sampling from their hometown only, and we got report in January 21. So mutation in the ALPL gene was not detected for the hypophosphatasia, but we could find a mutation in the collagen 1 alpha 2 chain where glycine was replaced by aspartate at codon 205. So it was classified as likely pathogenic, and this particular mutation has not been reported in literature till date. So how should we say that it is a likely pathogenic? So glycine is the smallest amino acid, and it is required at every third position in the both alpha chains to fold properly. So if glycine is replaced by any other amino acid, especially the bigger amino acid like aspartate, then there will be hinders in the triple helix formation of the collagen. And different missense mutation replacing glycine in the same codon has been described previously in association with the OI. So that is one favoring point. Other thing was they screened their genetic databases like 1000 genome exec and internal database, and this mutation frequency was 0% in the population control. So that is the second favoring point. And they also used in silico prediction models like Polyfin2, SIFT and LRT. These tools will predict the possible impact of an amino acid replacement on the structure and function of a human protein. So we can calculate that if glycine is replaced by aspartate at codon 205 particularly, then that will damage the collagen or not. and in this case it was found to be damaging. So that is the third favoring point. And our patient's phenotype is also matching with the mutated gene. So it is very likely that this is a definitely pathogenic mutation. And for further confirmation, we have sent the parents Sanger sequencing, which will give us the final answer.
So, can usually low LP, what can be the possible cause of low LP here? What do you think?
We could not exactly explain the low ALP, but there are some miscellaneous causes like magnesium deficiency or zinc deficiency are also described as the cause of low ALP. So, uh, but
Type
with
2 OI is
and type
usually
2, yes, sir.
lethal. Usually that is lethal, but that is associated with low alkaline phosphatase.
Yes, sir.
And
Type
this
2.
mutation is the new one, this novel one. So we don't know if it is a type 2 OI with low ALP is there.
Yes,
Can
sir.
be one of the possibility.
Yes, sir. That is one of the possibilities.
Yeah. Okay.
So coming back to the case,
Yeah.
so then after this mutation report, the child came last week only, and he gained 5 centimeter over 13 months and 4 kg over 13 months. So he was growing well. There was no short stature, but this time child had bilateral ankle joint laxity. So previously it was not there, but it is known in the OI. And the other striking finding this time was multiple asymptomatic compression fracture of the vertebrae. It was previously not there, and now we can say that there are some moderate vertebral fractures. So disease activity is very severe because only single non-traumatic vertebral fracture is enough for the diagnosis of osteoporosis. So we also got his DEXA scan done, and we could do only lumbar spine BMD. We planned for the TBLH, but the patient had intramedullary nail, and he was also not that cooperative. So here is the LSBMD report. The Z score was -6, so that is very severe. But in children, we have to correct for the age and size of the bone. So we calculated this bone mineral apparent density. That is a virtual 3D BMD we can call, and it was 0.08. Here is the graph for the normal distribution of BMD in Indian boys from 5 to 18 years. And we can see that 0.08 is way below the fifth percentile for the particular age. So definitely this child has a very severe osteoporosis. And to resolve the discrepancy for the low ALP and to further monitoring of the treatment, we advise the baseline bone turnover marker, and both were in the upper normal range, P1, NP, and beta CTX. But this normal range is very variable in different studies, and I could not find a normal Indian range for the children. But P1 NP was in higher side, so definitely he is in a high bone turnover state. So ALP low was due to some other cause.
The bone specific alkaline phosphatase that might help you to understand that ALP was really low or bone specific, or it is just a ALP because of the liver origin or the other site of origin.
Right, sir. Yes, sir. We will plan, sir, that.
Yeah,
in the
specific alkaline phosphatase might be helpful. Sometimes there is a discrepancy between the total ALP and P1 and P, so that can be another thing you can do. Yes.
Yes, sir.
It will
Definitely.
also help to monitor because treatment also, because the treatment we generally treat with the zoledronic acid.
Yes, sir.
So if the turnover marker is important guide for that, in addition to the BMD also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we planned this treatment like this. We plan to send him for the physiotherapy. We ensure adequate calcium and vitamin D supplementation, and we gave him zoledronic acid at the dose of 0.05 mg per kg. That is 1 milligram for this child over 30 minutes. And we will plan to continue every 6 monthly till the vertebral fracture heal with the monitoring of X-ray and bone turnover markers. So, in nutshell, to this is from Dr. L.M. Watt's paper itself, from the JCM article, that if child is presenting with the clinically significant fracture, first we should rule out the secondary causes of osteoporosis, like acute or chronic systemic illness, by appropriate history and investigation. And once we are sure that it is not a secondary osteoporosis, then we should rule out rickets or hyperphosphatasia by appropriate investigation, as was done in this case. And once they both are ruled out, we should plan for the formal osteoporosis evaluation by the spine radiograph, BMD by DEXA, and partial or full skeletal survey, depending on the clinical context. We should also look for the pointers for the bone fragility disorder, like skin laxity, blue sclera, Vermean bones, scoliosis, or vertebral fractures. Also, we can look for the easy bruising or joint hypermobility and low BMD. If these clinical pointers are there, and if we are suspecting the primary osteoporotic syndrome, then genetic test can give us the ultimate answer, and we can plan treatment accordingly.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Seth. A nice presentation. We gave any one or two quick questions from the audience, if yes.
Yes, sir.
So, I think there is no question. In that case, over to Dr. Lakshmi for the proceedings.
Sir, there is one question. Like, should we suspect OI in a child with a trivial fall? Like, child just fell down while playing and like having a the usual like supracondylar fracture or something.
Yeah, that is, I think, one thing. Otherwise, the fall and fracture is very common in the pediatric age group, but it is a recurrent. That is one thing. And if it is on trivial, you may not ask for the genetic screening immediately, but patient can be examined for the clinical parameters. Definitely, if there is more than one fracture, then definitely it should be investigated. Yes.
There is one more question. What are the differentials of low ALP in children? I think.
Yeah.
So I have one slide, sir, from the. This is a Michael White's paper on the hypophosphatasia, and these are the causes of low ALP.
Okay.
So yeah, we can rule out hypothyroidism or Cushing syndrome, celiac disease, and zinc or magnesium deficiency, vitamin C deficiency, and vitamin D intoxication. And as I told, osteogenesis imperfecta type 2. So that we have to keep in mind while thinking of low ALP.
I'm Vijay Bhatia. May I add severe PEM to that?
Yes, actually, I was also thinking of that answer. Okay, your child was underweight and malnourished as well, isn't it?
Ma'am, his weight was at 10 centile, so not so much malnourished. And otherwise,
okay.
So anyway, actually we are intrigued also to know this low ALP level. I think we need some more detailed workup to exactly find out the cause of the low ALP, because the treatment was not given, and the ALP persisted same even after the zoledronic acid, Dr. Seth?
after zoledronic acid, sir, we just gave last week, and we have not repeated after that.
Okay. Yeah, but you can get bone specific alkaline phosphatase.
Sure, sir, we will do that.
Divya, I think there was a hand raised from one of the fellows who was allowed to interact. Ishita.
Okay. I think it's showing us endocrinology, Chris. Yeah.
You want to quickly
Please
ask?
introduce yourself. Ishita?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I am a fellow at APGI. I would like to ask whether there is any possibility of hypophosphatasia, the adult form, with this form of little bit lower alkaline phosphatase. Should we consider it?
Yeah, but matlab for this patient you are asking, he already worked up for the LPL gene and the mutation was negative. So otherwise, adult form can present like this. We will have marginally low ALP, and they will generally have dental issues also, which was not there in this child.
Yeah, that's of course the ALP is low, so the hypophosphatemia will always remain a possibility. There's no doubt about it. But now the question is, as Dr. Seth told this, then the exome sequencing. So now that is very, very low on the cards.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
I think one of the fellows who's been allowed to interact, Pankaj, has raised his hand.
Yeah, Dr. Pankaj, can I ask you a question?
Dr. Pankaj, please unmute yourself and ask question.
Hello.
Yes, yes, Dr.
I
Ganesh.
am unmuted. Am I audible?
Sorry, 1 minute, 1 minute. Can
Hello?
you close the PPT presentation, please?
Yes, sir.
Please stop sharing it. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
We welcome Dr. Professor Lian Watt for joining us today. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Dr. Pankaj, you can ask your question. You have to unmute yourself. Dr. Pankaj?
Hello.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, you can write your question chat box if there is some problem.
Dr. Pankaj, please ask your question in the chat box. Sir, there is a question now asking like what is your clinical experience with regards to the prognosis of such children?
Yeah, I think this prognosis of OI is good, and at least in this particular patient, disease does not seem to be very severe also. So prognosis is good generally, and we have the only problem is that they should require the proper follow-up and treatment, because earlier there was a protocol, the Montreal protocol, they use this less frequent doses, but now that these patients will require 6 months to one yearly therapy continuous till the bone is fused or the BPMD is achieved. So the close follow-up and the proper treatment, the prognosis is good.